Today on I Am Rising, the treasure of the darkness. I guess I could say too, the treasure in the darkness. I could also just say entering the dark. I know for myself, the darkness throughout my life has such a negative connotation. I know I was taught to fear it. And as I even just tune into the dark now, it's fascinating how much has changed. What is the dark? The absence of light. But what do we make it mean? I know I've shared this story before, but when I was a little girl, I used to say a prayer with my mom, and we would kneel down uh, alongside my bed together. And it was that Catholic prayer. Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the world my soul to keep. If I should die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. What a horrible prayer. I feel like I've spoken of this before, but I'm going to speak to it again. So my little girl ears just heard, I'm going to die in my sleep. And I remember asking my mom, well, I'm going to die, mommy. And I mean, it's vague, but the essence is there. I remember her saying, no, sweetheart, that's not going to happen. And I remember just saying, well, what happens when I die? She goes, well, you go to heaven with God. And I remember so vividly, I'd say, well, then what? And she'd say, well, you're in heaven, then you're with God. And I'd be like, and then what? And I don't remember what she said because I feel like I started to panic uh, because she would leave the room, and when I would think about forever and ever, I would hyperventilate. I feel too like this was my first panic attack, but of course I didn't know that being a little girl. And this really was, but I didn't realize until becoming a breathwork facilitator, this was my first experience with breath. Isn't it weird to not even know that until 40 something years later? Yeah, what I learned when I closed my eyes and was in the dark of the unknown, I learned if I keep thinking about what I'm going to be doing forever, if I keep thinking about dying and where I'm going to be, I can't breathe. The fear overtook me, the terror. My body, now I know it was my nervous system going into, gosh, I want to say all of them: fight, flight, freeze. Just like, yeah. And that little Tina, gosh, did that make an impact? What's interesting is I stopped feeling that morning. I stopped breathing in a lot of ways. And oh boy, did a fear of death get trapped inside. What's interesting is I spent so much of my teenage years, even into my 20s, studying death and the afterlife. And through book after case study, being fascinated by when people have that near-death experience and return to speak to it, I felt like that I really knew for the first time that I wasn't afraid of my death anymore. It felt like, oh, I accomplished something. And I remember still being concerned and fearing if other people would die. But I felt like I wasn't afraid of my own anymore. Until about 2 years before my breast cancer diagnosis. I was driving, normal drive, to the grocery store. And I started this thinking just like I did when I was a little girl. And when I thought of Tina forever, and then where am I? And if I'm not here now, and I had to pull over to the side of the road because the same thing happened. And I had had panic attacks in my 30s, but this was the debilitating one, like when I was a little girl. And what's interesting is I feel like in a lot of ways, this fear, this darkness, this dark cloud had always been there lurking in the background for whatever reason, coming forth at different times. And then this would happen in little bits leading up to that day at the end of 2020 when I literally faced this death fear. And the reason that I'm sharing this story is that I guess I just keep feeling like I have overcome this fear. And yet I still have moments where it comes up. So whatever your fear is, death or sickness or being alone, what I've learned is, and what I'm going to talk more about today is, only coming face to face with it and breathing into it, only sitting with it and welcoming it, only feeling it to the fullness that I possibly can in the moment, has it revealed and continues to reveal the magic. It's magic. Darkness is simply the absence of light. When we fear it, we give energy to it. You probably heard me say before, too, that the body is an archive of our entire subconscious. But so often we're living in the mind and not the body. And so to the mind, the darkness is a scary, scary place because we don't have answers. The mind's trying to get answers. We can't understand. So then we go into fear and shut down. And these are all the programs that are really intertwined with a ton of beliefs. All beliefs throughout our lifetime, maybe lifetimes. And these get activated, especially when it's energy we haven't met, especially when it's fears that we just tuck away for later, like I did innocently as a little girl. And even when I was studying it, I wasn't feeling it. I wasn't looking at what does this bring up in my body? What does this bring up for me? What does this represent? Where do I feel this? It was always studying it to try to get to know it, to understand it, to accomplish it. And none of that will ever fully work. So cancer, the most horrific thing to happen to me, and the 2-year recovery, 1 year bedridden, I got to know the darkness really well. And one of my mentors, Melanie Joy, really helped me from a divine feminine perspective about how The darkness, or what some call the underworld, is our inner world. So take that body of the subconscious, our nervous system holding everything that ever happened to us, so that anything familiar that comes our way, it will signal that it's danger, and then we stay shut. So we do all the mental planning and controlling, or so we think that we're controlling. And it's all just still there. And nobody really teaches us that it's okay to go inside to this underworld, especially when I'm not that little girl anymore. Now I can go inward and feel and be and open. And so what is that when we enter the darkness? Even right now, I'm closing my eyes a lot because I'm feeling into all that comes up for me as I even talk about it. Your treasure, the treasure, is in the darkness. And only when we are courageous enough to go inward can we ever fully live, like fully thrive and live. And isn't that fascinating? That it took cancer and almost death and all of the fears that came with it, the terror that came with it, the agony, the frustration, the disappointment, the sadness, all the stuff that I tried to avoid my whole life. I met because this life-threatening illness knocked me to my knees, put me in bed. And so when I think of how extreme I've been throughout my life, and I've made jokes that even in illness, I've extreme and intense, couldn't just be a little light cancer. It had to be aggressive, life-threatening cancer. And for me, that makes sense because I would have probably just done the same thing I'd always done. Check off the box, get to the next thing, keep moving forward, think that I mastered it because I can talk about it. And that's what's tricky. There are big authors out there, teachers out there that could have to be really successful, have a ton of books and programs. And that's great. That's wonderful. But that doesn't mean that they're embodying and walking and being in the walk and talk of what they're writing about. And that's a big difference. And so in that year of pretty much being bedridden, I guess you could say, had no choice. I could have kept numbing out in different ways. I had every good reason and excuse to. And there were moments of that. I did watch a lot of bad TV to get my mind off of what was happening. But I also spent a lot of that time meeting me on the inside, which you've probably also heard me say a bunch of times, and I will continue to. So the underworld is my inner world. What does that mean? We go down into our bodies to what's been frozen, to what's been stuck in time, what's been stuck in fear, who has been stuck in fear, the scarcity, the lack, all the protective mechanisms, all the stories. So when we go to this inner world, when we enter the darkness, even with a little willingness, this is an initiation. And I truly believe that cancer, that illness, that all challenges and obstacles, especially the really big, scary ones, are a true initiation. It's an initiation into a higher way of being if we so let it be. And it can look messy and it can feel scary. And we could fall down a ton of times. I know I have, and I know I still do. And I have found from being in the dark that I am the one that I have been running from. I am also the one that I have been yearning for, that I get to run to now. But that's the beauty of when we enter the darkness. We meet ourselves. And when we meet ourselves and feel what's there, what's here, underneath all of the pain, underneath the wound, underneath the closure, underneath the trauma, the scary stories, the programs, there's so many words we could use for it, is our truest essence, is our radiant light, is our power. So when we fight the darkness, we're just keeping it alive in our system. When we try to escape the darkness, we're resisting it, so we're keeping it alive in our system. And so what will it take for you to embrace the darkness and travel to your underworld, your inner world, to be for yourself what you are looking for in the other or in the outside? It's never going to happen on the outside. Well, I shouldn't say it's never going to happen. It can happen on the outside, but it will never be the answer. It will never fulfill you. You get to be the father you never had to the you on the inside. You get to be the mother you never had to the you on the inside. And you might have had a great mother or a great father, but you still didn't get certain things in life. There are still things that you have, needs that were unmet. We come in here with all sorts of lessons to learn. So whatever you think that you're missing, whatever you think that you're lacking, you get to be for yourself. You get to give yourself. And it is the only way that it works. We're just addicted to the outside. It's shiny. It's got a lot of stimulus to distract us. It seems to hold all of the answers. And it doesn't. And it never will. I'm always looking over journals because one, eventually it will be my book. But it's so revealing to how dark it was for me at times. And yet that makes sense if we go through a life of suppressing all that we're feeling, especially the fears and the pain and the sadness. Where do you think that energy goes? It doesn't go anywhere until we feel it, until we embrace it, until we allow it, then it can move. And so because this is so much a part of my practice for the last 4 years and counting since cancer, there's such a clear now polarization of where I was and how horrific it was to now. It's amazing that I'm a testament to this really works, that this is the answer, that you are the answer. And I know we hear all these things, but again, it can't just be a concept. It has to be an embodiment. You have to go into the body to feel. Well, you don't have to do anything. But if you're looking for a more full life, if you're looking to truly heal, if you're looking for wholeness and fulfillment and to just be in alignment with why you came here, it is not reacting to the outside, which is so much of what I know I did. And anyway, here I have from 2021, end of 2021, feeling dead, living in the land of hell, emptiness, seclusion, confusion, brain fog, because it was chemo brain, which feels like being brain dead, or feeling like a stroke victim, obviously by assumption from what I assumed that it felt like. I feel like death, foreign to my own body, detached from everything and everyone, because survival is all that I can muster, and that means sleep almost all day, eat, drink water, dinner, sleep. And then I just go on, and I've spent time in other podcast episodes to talk about the darkness. You get the gist. So 11/21, what are we in? 22? So that's really just a few years ago. And what did I do? I wrote about it. I let myself be in it. I felt it. I asked the questions. Who is it that feels this way? And what's underneath this? I got curious. And the more that I got curious, I got to meet those places within me, and they could become unfrozen. What happens when ice melts? It becomes liquid. When that frozen energy inside of us melts because we breathe into it and feel it, it becomes tears. The tears representing a release, crying out an old persona or identity, meeting ourselves there with grace, with humility. This is the work, which I say often. And I have here too a big aha that I realized I had been running my entire life, running away from pain, running away from family. I moved across the country from New York to Southern California, not realizing I was running from all of the pain of my youth. I ran from relationships, but mostly I was running from me. It was another external thing to do, to try to figure out, to try to make sense of. And like I said in the last episode about trying too hard to heal prevents your healing. Trying to do anything prevents the very thing you're trying to do, because it means we're distracting ourselves from something that's here to be met in the moment. So I have, if I could just keep moving, thinking, planning, working, pushing, trying new things, meeting new people, achieving, then I could feel successful, prove my worth to everyone, validate my choices. And it was only when life stopped me, it invited me inside, and that was cancer. And only then did I breathe myself open from all of the closure, all that was actually shutting me down and closing me off. I met myself in the darkness, in pain. I met myself in fear. I realized I was living a life reacting to the external, living on the outside, in my head, only thinking I was inside my heart and my body. It was a program. And that's what I said before. We can live in concepts and never truly embody the principles and practice. I was creating a fight in my body and fighting all former versions of myself that I had deemed wrong, pathetic, ugly, etc. And all of that ugly fear energy erupted in my body. My body didn't have a choice. My whole life, all I did was find everything that was wrong with my body. So, of course, it would end up like this. So then, of course, to just fast forward a little, toxic drugs, the chemo, the surgeries, which is a complete amputation of my right breast, debilitating side effects. All of this led me inside. Here's the extreme. Here's the intensity. For me, it had to be that way. That was the catalyst for me to wake up, to not be afraid of the darkness, to meet all of this head on and realize there is a light within me and a power within me, God within me, that is bigger than all of this, that is brighter than all of this. But I have not been living from that place. I've been living attached to the fear, in alignment with the programs. And so I just finished here. I met with my breath all the little Tinas along the way that I locked up inside. This was a forgiveness process and a reuniting of all that was always right. My body just needs love, connection. My heart in its purity was always where all the answers were. It's still where all the answers are. It's right here. God is inside. Breath is life, igniting my inner light. Now I'm open to what's possible. I no longer feel like I have to battle life. I've received beyond my wildest dreams all I have ever searched and longed for inside of me. It's been me. I am all I've been seeking. But it's not just a teaching or a concept. It's now a true embodiment. This is the gift. This is the treasure of the dark. Can you bring presence to whatever is coming up for you from even listening? Can you look at your life and where you're resisting, where you're trying too hard, where you're running? Are you running to something or are you running from something? Running is running. And while you're running to that next thing, what is the program running? It's asking for you to be still. I'm so grateful for the dark. I'm so thankful that I have been given the most profound gift in the darkness. And it has been meeting myself there, loving myself back open again, celebrating all of it and all of me, and making none of it wrong. And this continues to be my process, my journey. And I have never felt more alive, more fulfilled, more healthy. If I could do this in a few short years, you can too with whatever you're facing. It's not about the treatment itself. I should know because I've done conventional treatments and a zillion holistic treatments, supplements, etc. That's my episode on PTSD if you want to go check it out. I'm going to have another one because there was a request. It's not the pill, it's not the doctor, it's not any of that. Those are all just tools and experiences and lessons that come with it. The answer is you on the inside and your willingness to meet yourself there. So yeah, there's a repeat of it, and there will continue to be a repeat of it because the mind takes over and it keeps you in the dark. And your nervous system keeps you there until you develop a practice to be more present with what's here and get to know yourself more on the inside with embodiment, with a lightness and relaxed body, with letting the light in, with allowing yourself to feel, allowing the tears without any meaning. And presence. So my invitation to you before I close is whatever in this moment it means for you, are you willing to travel to your inner world, that underworld, and meet the goddess within? Meet the god within. Men have an underworld as well. And when you meet yourself there, moment by moment, breath by breath, celebrate the courage that it takes to enter the dark. And keep celebrating and keep offering up gratitude, because that energy that you inside is everything. Thank you so much for listening. If you like this or any of the episodes, please share with anyone that might feel the transmission and receive whatever they need on any journey, whether it's cancer or illness or any obstacle or challenge. Remember, we walk into a dark room, we turn on the light. There is only light. You can't make the light dark unless you close. So let us breathe open together. Thank you, and I love you.